Hi, welcome back to SEO On Air. I'm your host Aaron, and today we have Jade Scotney, Marketing Director at Rebellion Marketing. We talk about the most effective strategies to drive high quality leads, the importance of LinkedIn marketing, and how AI is continuing to shape the marketing landscape. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Could you let's say give us an introduction on how much of entrepreneurship have you kind of had before getting to Marketing Rebels?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess on my dad's side of the family, pretty much everybody is kind of an entrepreneur or run their own businesses or freelanced at some point or another in their time. So my dad had a glazing business that was pretty successful. I think it was kind of 3 million turnover business. And kind of covered Portsmouth and the surrounding area, and essentially he did glazing and maintenance work, and grew that quite well and quite nicely. My uncle had a website design firm, so he did that for a number of years, and he's still doing that now. But he actually lives the life, moved to Australia, and he actually just travels around Australia and designs websites, which is pretty cool. So he's got a pretty nice lifestyle, to be fair. And then my auntie has an accountancy firm, so she has had that for years and years and years. And again, she's always been self-employed, always had that, had people working for her in that accountancy firm. And then my granddad also had a fire alarm business. So actually, since I was a child, I used to go to his workshop in there, and my mum worked for him for a bit, and my dad worked for him for a bit before he started his own businesses. And he essentially makes fire alarms, so from scratch. So I used to go in and watch them kind of making all the bits and bobs for the fire alarms. And that business went for a very long time. I think only recently, actually, did he retire from that at the grand age of 80. So yeah, quite a lot of experience in the entrepreneur world, if you like. I think it must have been in my blood from a young age.
And where exactly in this journey did Marketing Rebels come to play?
Sure. So this is actually business number 5 for me that I've been involved in. So I was initially, when I first went out into the world of work, I started in apprenticeships, and I worked full time for, it is now Babcock International, but at the time was for Thornycroft's. So kind of that's kind of where I started out my career, really. And so really from then until I was 25-ish, I'd always worked internally for other people, generally around the education sector. And then I moved into doing telecoms and IT as well, which loved the business I worked for, absolutely hated the industry with a passion. So the opportunity kind of arose for me to kind of start my own business alongside another group of business owners, which was in the apprenticeship sector. So I went off and did that. But actually, as I kind of worked in the apprenticeship side and did that, I kind of realized that the piece that I liked was the sales and the marketing aspect. And actually, the business that I was in was kind of irrelevant to what I was doing. Like, I just enjoyed seeing the growth, like being able to go out there, attract new clients into whatever business I was working in at the time. So I went and worked internally again after I left that business. And I was like, essentially, I guess, sales and marketing director. I looked after all the clients for a big apprenticeship provider. And again, realized at that point, the bit that I really enjoyed was the creative side, the marketing side, and all of that kind of thing. So whilst I was there, I met up with a friend of mine who also really was in an internal marketing role, but really kind of wanted to branch out on her own. So we kind of worked together and said, you know what, let's start a marketing agency. When we had a few vodkas one night, and that's exactly what we did. So we decided that was kind of the route forward. I handed in my notice where I was, as did she, and kind of off we went. So yeah, so it's we're now essentially 5 years trading this year. So that's
One
it.
thing that I wanted to know is at Marketing Rebels, is there, let's say, some of the top services that you think are constantly used by them? Or what would be your, let's say,
Mm.
main offerings?
Sure. So I'd say, generally speaking, SEO and PPC tend to be the two biggest services that we get requests for. Generally speaking, I think that is because that they're the two kind of areas that most general marketeers don't have that much experience in. And it's also the two areas where there's quite a lot of technical ability that's required in order to deliver the service well. So, anyone can go, yeah, I'm going to set up a Google Ads campaign. Anyone can go, I'm going to work on SEO and plug Yoast into the back end of my website and tick the boxes. But actually, both of those services, to get them right, actually deliver return and actually get them to a point where, they are generating leads and they're working properly, they're well optimized, and your costs aren't just kind of going through the roof and increasing all the time. It does take a lot more technical skill than just what people assume that it is. So we tend to find most people come to us for those two services specifically, and then we often kind of grow it out from there. So we do a great job, and then they potentially pass us their social media stuff. We do some marketing strategy work for them. We might do content marketing, video production, etc. But I'd say those two are kind of the most sought after services from our clients for sure.
I am the owner of an independent school called Smart Children School, let's just say.
Smart
Clearly,
Children School, I like it.
Yeah, I wasn't the smart one who attended the school, so we had to come up with a very low grade name. But a Smart Children's School, I've started it up. I have a few staff. Not a lot of them are, let's say, in marketing or in SEO or just in business in general. But they are willing to learn and kind of grow in that field. One thing I think I can start off by asking is, should I approach a marketing agency for help, or should I kind of start building my in-house team?
Sure. I would say that is, as all good marketers will say, it depends. But I would say if you've got restricted budget, you generally find that outsourcing marketing tends to go further. So for our clients, I can't speak for every marketing agency, obviously, but for our clients, they get, an SEO specialist, a PPC specialist, a social media specialist, content writer. They get a videographer and photographer, all of that, and a potential marketing manager, marketing director, and people that sit at that level. They get all of that for the price that they would pay for one kind of mid to high level marketing manager internally. So usually what we recommend is that they have someone internally that can help manage the process. So i.e. understand what's going on, understand the culture of the school, and also look at kind of what's going on day to day, go around, potentially take images, collect data, understand from teachers what's happening. And then they take all that information and they essentially manage the outsourced marketing agency to deliver everything that they require. That's usually what works best for schools, because you usually find that the people that they have internally, they might know bits and bobs, they'll be really good at managing process and having a high level understanding of how marketing works, but they won't have a deep enough knowledge on each individual section of marketing to effectively be able to deliver a good level of service and get some return.
And what would be, let's say, some telltale signs that this is an agency I should avoid?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, generally speaking, not having a process for reporting and account management would be a big one. Have a look at their own stuff. Like if you're looking into things like SEO, ask them for case studies. If they can't provide you with case studies, or perhaps somebody who's willing to give them a testimonial, then they're probably not worth their salt. And really kind of having someone that understands the market that you're operating in is quite important. So if they don't have an understanding of kind of basic kind of gaps that schools face, things like, for example, we would know that most schools suffer with massive dropout when it moves from nursery to reception year, if they have nursery. If they don't know kind of basic information like that, you're probably better off going with somebody who does understand the market better.
While SEO is a marathon and you can't really pump and dump and finish it within, would it be possible, let's say, to give me a timeline of how long it would take to at least set up the basics of SEO?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess that really depends on the size of the site. If it's absolutely huge and there's lots of technical problems, lots of issues that need resolving, then actually it could be quite a long time. For the average site that we work on, it tends to be probably 6 weeks to get the initial technical stuff fixed. So once that's done, we also would work in the background on implementing like a structure and a new strategy for where we wanted to take the SEO, what we want to rank for, and kind of like who our competitors are, etc. But just to get the kind of absolute basic technical stuff up together, so that we've got a good baseline to start working on the strategy, is probably around 6 weeks. unless it's a huge, great big e-commerce site with loads of issues, then potentially you're looking at a few months, depending on how crap it is. And quite often we'll then be in a position, if it's looking it's going to take longer, 6 to 8 weeks to get it all fixed, we'd probably recommend a site build from scratch, because often it's easier, quicker, and we know that it's going to be technically sound from the get-go. So yeah.
Could you explain what Social Rebel is?
Sure, yeah. So Social Rebel is kind of like a completely different thing from kind of SEO and all of that jazz. So our Social Rebel platform was basically developed because we had lots of clients in the early days. So in those first 2 years of business, that we would come on for social media with us, and they would use kind of Hootsuite or Buffer or Social Bee or whatever it is. So we'd end up having to log into multiple different platforms. The team had to kind of understand all these different platforms, learn how they worked. There's all issues with, logins changing, pricing structures changing. So then the client wanted to change platforms, etc., etc., etc. So I kind of was at a point where I was like, this is just ridiculous. What we need is, when a client comes on board, we have one platform that we can all log into, we manage all our clients from, and they're not then having to pay, for other kind of software in order for us to manage their social media. So that's how it kind of came about. And since then, it's kind of really developed and grown. And we've got, now we can run everything. Facebook, what do we have on it? Facebook, Twitter, or X as it's now called, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Google My Business, LinkedIn. So we can manage all
It's
of those
mainly
channels.
for marketing and social media?
Yeah, absolutely. But it does have a Google My Business section on there, so we can post to Google My Business, which obviously helps with SEO as well. And we have it's just recently launched an SEO monitor on there, but it's really based on the Google My Business profile and looks more at kind of where you're ranking locally, so local rankings, and your local position within the market. So it does have that tool available on it, but generally speaking, it is used for managing social media, looking at reporting, scheduling posts, doing some graphic design work, and all of that kind of stuff.
Are there, let's say, any books or podcasts that you would recommend our viewers and listeners?
Sure.
They don't have to be, let's say, digital marketing related or business. They could just be things that kind of struck a chord with you.
Yeah, of course. Book wise, let's think. I read stuff all of the time, actually. And one that I've recently started reading is, I think it's called The 1 Minute Manager, I think is what it's called. From a business perspective, that one's been quite helpful. I'll also do a little shout out to Offended Marketing, Dan. He's not offended anymore, but he's written a couple of little books that he always tell everyone's really rubbish. But actually, when I read his book on content, I'm not going to say what the book is called out loud. You'll have to go and find it because it's a bit rude. But actually, it's quality from a kind of objective perspective on what type of content is going to resonate with your audience, how to integrate good content marketing into your wider marketing strategy. It's really short, to the point, really kind of casually written, but very, very good. So I really enjoyed reading that one. And then another one is the SEO, particularly an SEO book that I have been reading recently. And honestly, I can't remember the exact title of it. I think it's just called How to Get to the Top of Google. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And the guy that's written it, has released a more recent one. But I found that extremely useful when I very first started out in SEO. Super helpful. Has lots of kind of step-by-step guides on like what SEO is, how to begin to implement it, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're at that stage in business where you're looking to start tinkering with SEO yourself, you're not quite ready, or you haven't quite got the budget to take on an SEO agency yet, I would definitely recommend that one. Or even just to get an understanding of what it is that your SEO agency is doing for you, and what it means, and kind of just to kind of get an understanding of what they're saying. It's a good book from that perspective as well. Those would be my business books. Podcast wise, I've got to admit, I don't really listen to podcasts all that much. Like, I'm just not a podcast kind of girl. But I do sometimes listen to the Stephen Bartlett one, which is the CEO one, the day in I forget what it's called as well, but his one's quite good. And there's a couple of others that I kind of dip in and out of, but nothing that I kind of really listen to that regularly because I'm too busy. That's what it is. Too busy doing stuff like this. And obviously we do our own podcast if anyone fancies listening to it.
Yeah, I was
Called
going to say,
Marketing Rebels.
when it comes to, let's say, the school now, I've kind of gotten my SEO worked out. I've got my marketing kind of worked out as well. I've got like the basis of everything kind of ready.
Sure.
It's been doing well, the website. It's been gaining some organic traffic as well. But I want to, let's say, step it up and start acquiring some leads.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would be your approach? And let's say, again, a step by step guide to kind of getting it done right?
Sure. Well, first of all, I love that question because that is often where we find when the client comes to us and they've already had some SEO work done, it's normally at this point. And it's normally because they go, well, traffic's increased, but we haven't got any results from it. I.e., what they mean by results is they don't have any conversions, right? They haven't seen any leads from it. And what we often find is that is because a lot of SEO people, and you probably find the same thing, is they don't really know what they're doing. So they go in, they do all the technical stuff, they get it to a point where like, right, okay, well, I've fixed all the technical issues. There's no technical stuff to do. The site speed is good. I've fixed all the H1s, so they're all relevant. I've done all the content. I've placed a load of keywords as much as I can. I've added to this content. Now what? And that is where most people get to. They do that basic bit, which is, you can Google it, right? You can find this information on, get your H1s in, make sure your meta's right, make sure you've got your key term and the URL, all that jazz you can do, you can fix. But what happens next? How do you get those leads through the door? So actually, this is kind of our forte, if you like, is getting it from that bit to then getting those conversions. So I'd say the biggest thing that we often find is that, again, the site isn't built for user journey. So yeah, you're getting all this traffic, but there's normally two things. A, the traffic that's coming on just doesn't know what to do. They don't know where to go. You're not guiding them into, what you want from them, right? So unfortunately, most people are inherently lazy. They want to land on a site and they want it shoved in their face exactly what it is, the steps that you want them to take. And as much as people say they don't, people want to spend their money. That's what they want. They want to be compelled to spend their money with you. So when it comes to SEO, I think user experience, user journey kind of goes hand in hand with that. And that is kind of the next stage we would naturally take. So you can kind of use things like Hotjar, etc., to give you an understanding of where those users are going, what they're clicking on, how we can get better conversion rates from the activity that's happening. So that would be kind of one of our steps. The other thing would be to just have a look at the intent of the key terms that we're being focused on. So another thing that we find quite common is that, yeah, it's getting loads of traffic, but the traffic is totally irrelevant traffic. So we had a client recently, and to be fair, they weren't really working on their SEO. This is more accidental than anything else. But they were getting probably 2,000 to 3,000 users a month on their site. So not too shabby, about what we'd expect for a school, looking okay. So they're like, oh, okay, well, the traffic looks pretty decent. So why aren't we getting anything from this? When we kind of dove into it, we found that all the traffic was coming from a particular blog that was written that was all about the quote from Einstein that is not judging a fish on climbing a tree, right? So everybody that was then searching, I say everybody, but a higher percentage of the people that were searching the Einstein quote they were coming up quite near the top of Google for this particular thing. So all their traffic was coming from that. Well, that looks great on paper when you go, look how much traffic we've got. But actually, are any of those people looking for an independent school and researching independent schools? Absolutely not. So the first thing we did there was like, this needs to go. We need to get rid of this completely because, yeah, your traffic's going to fall off a cliff and it's going to look really bad stat-wise. But actually, it's a really positive thing because what we want to do is get intent-led traffic to the site. So, just off the top of your head, open days for independent schools near me, right? That obviously shows that the person that is searching is looking to attend an open day of an independent school that is close to them. If you fall into that category, you want to be front and center, top of Google for that particular search term. So that is a massive issue that we always find, is that actually the intent behind the search hasn't really been thought through. So lots and lots of people, whether they doing it accidentally because they're not really focused on SEO, but they are doing blog pieces, etc., are just getting irrelevant traffic because sometimes they just, stumble across that particular blog piece, for example. They just happen to optimize that page really well by accident, basically, and picked up a load of rubbish traffic. And then other times it's because, again, some other SEO agencies don't really know what they're doing. So actually what they do is go, well, yeah, I've done all the basics and I've got all this traffic on site for you. But they don't go that one step further into the strategy behind why the traffic is going on site. What's it there for? What's the intent behind the search? So that's the kind of second thing that we would look at is, okay, how do we realign this to get the right people on the site at the right time? And then how do we improve the conversion? How do we do conversion optimization and user journey, user experience to make sure that the right traffic, when it lands, isn't actually converting into a sale?
So in that situation, let's say the specific one itself, where I am getting traffic for my website, but just not the right type of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
If I am getting a lot of traffic, do I just change up what the content is, or do I remove the entire page and start afresh?
Depends, I think. It depends on what the page is about. Like if there is some intent behind it and it is relevant to what you're doing, it would probably be more of a restructure. So you'd probably keep the page, keep the traffic coming, but then pull out additional content that was actually more intent-led.
Right.
If it's completely irrelevant, absolutely nothing to do with what you do, like, for example, that one we mentioned, we would probably just remove it completely because, yeah, it's like totally pointless, essentially. But it depends on the situation, right?
Yeah, I feel like you mentioned earlier, it depends might be an answer for most
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, it does. Sorry
But,
about that.
but no worries. I feel like some of these questions are posed in a way where you have to be like, it depends. What are your goals?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that, I think that, again, going back to your, like, what's a red flag for a marketing agency? I think that would be if they're not asking you what outcome you want, what your goals are,
right.
what you want from your SEO or any other element of your marketing, then how can they possibly achieve what you want, right? So yeah, they can go, oh yeah, we'll work on your SEO. If you're not meeting with them every month, you're not having a kickoff meeting with them. They haven't asked you what your goals are, and just every month you just get a sheet from them that says this is what you're ranking for. They're probably
Yeah.
not the best people to be working with, right? They need to be constantly understanding like what you're trying to achieve from the strategy.
In, let's say, terms of PPC and Google Ads, which I think we were kind of a little bit talking about earlier,
Sure.
um, how would I, let's say, be able to optimize it to ensure I'm getting the max out of the money I'm putting in?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So this is again one thing that we find quite often is that we get to a point they'll come to us. We've been running Google Ads, we're not really seeing a result, or initially we got some great leads, and now we're not. It's died off. We're getting irrelevant stuff coming through. Da 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 da. So most of the time, that's usually because they've been left completely unoptimized. So they just run themselves, and people forget that Google Ads is still AI, it's still artificial intelligence. It still has to learn and understand like what you want from it, right? It's like working with a person. You wouldn't just go to a person and go, right, this is the ads that I want to run. Go do that, and then never speak to them again. Because what
Right.
they'll go is go, oh, well, I've seen this work. This has got loads of traffic. But if you don't go to them, well, that's not the right kind of traffic. They'll just continue with that because they've seen that it's worked without understanding your goals. And Google Ads kind of works in the same way, right? So we can put in as much information at the front end as we like. And initially, you'll see an uplift in leads and traffic and all of that good stuff. But over time, if you're not kind of optimizing, you're not getting rid of negative keywords, all of that kind of stuff, you're going to get the crap coming through because Google will go, oh, actually, we allowed this. We saw some search volume around this. It kind of reflects what you initially asked for, and it's got traffic. We've seen a conversion or whatever. We're just going to pump that in. And then you'll just get more and more of that. So essentially, your costs will just continue to rise all of the time, and your traffic will become less and less relevant. So it's really important that when you're doing PPC, that you're always going into the account, you're kind of getting rid of the negative stuff that you don't want. And you're kind of saying to Google, yeah, you nailed this. This is exactly the type of client that we're looking for. This over here, no, that's not what we want. That's not correct. It didn't give us the right type of conversion, the right type of person. bin that off. We don't want it. And that's really important to keep doing with Google all of the time, so that over time, essentially your cost per click is coming down to as low as we can possibly get it, but your conversion rate is continuing to increase until we get to like a plateau where it's then maintained and you've got regular conversions coming through. But a common misconception with PPC is that is like, as soon as you plug stuff in, it works and it just continues to work. And that is just not the case, right? Takes a good 8 weeks again for it to initially learn exactly what you're after and what you want. And then it's a continuous maintenance piece every single week in, week out to make sure it continues to deliver. So yeah.
Is there, let's say, a sweet spot between the amount of time a Google ad runs for and the amount of money you put in, where
Sure.
if you wait for a bit longer than that, you might see, let's say, diminishing returns?
Again, I think it really depends on the account. But yeah,
Right.
so we're in the initial, so it's always going to cost you more at the front end for sure. Like it's always going to cost more money initially because Google's learning. You're going to have a higher cost per click. It's trying to understand the conversions that work for you and those that don't, which have been good, which haven't been good. So you're always going to see that big kind of initial, if you've got the budget, it's always going to cost you more at the front end than it will do later on after it's been optimized. Is there a sweet spot for it? I'd say by month 3, you should be seeing a nice consistent level of return from it. And then as long as that's maintained and optimized well, that should be about the point. Having said that, we've got one client that it's probably about a year before it really started to deliver super consistently so that you could actually forecast based on what it delivered. But that is a huge account. So they spend a lot of money. But we got it to a point now where initially they were probably spending £2 to £5 actually per click. And their return on investment for a conversion is probably around the £5,000 mark. So, super, you're well worth the return. But now we've got those down to around 80p per click. So the conversion, the return on investment from it is just phenomenal. But those accounts have been running for 3 years. So you can just see the difference you just have to look at the data, which shows you what they put in like the front end to be what they put in now on a monthly basis. And the return is so much higher now, even though they're spending less money on the budget itself. So yeah, the more you work on it, the more you optimize, the more Google understands what you want, the better the return on investment you'll get.
And this kind of applies to Google ads, but does the same, let's say, apply to LinkedIn marketing and their ads as well, or social media ads in general?
Yeah, so not in sometimes, but not quite in the same way. So we do for our independent schools specifically. If we're going back to that kind of use case, Facebook tends to be more gets what's called creative fatigue, right? So if you're just doing kind of display type ads, so kind of the payment system works on a similar way, like it's a cost per click type payment system, but rather than looking at intent led searches, it's more brand awareness. You're shoving your ad in people's faces that meet your demographic, right? So it's a slightly different model. And generally speaking, once they've seen it a few times, they're going to begin to get bored of it. So actually, with things like Facebook and display type ads, you do need to change that up on a much more regular basis. Whereas with search ads, you kind of want to be keeping that very similar, but optimizing as you go. So it's a very different approach, I would say. And I'd say similarly for LinkedIn, although there's a whole raft of different ads you can do on LinkedIn. But if we're talking like display type stuff, same thing kind of happens, right? Once you've exhausted an audience with a particular creative and a particular ad, it's going to get boring. It's going to stop delivering results and it's going to start dropping in terms of the leads that come through. It's pretty noticeable quite quickly as well. You'll see that drop happening. And at that point, you need to rethink your creative and kind of get something new and fresh out the door that you're paying for. So, yeah.
Right. Where all can I use tools like AI, ChatGPT and other AI tools to kind of help me out? And is it possible to kind of do most of this with AI?
Yeah, so I love AI, love it. I love ChatGPT, and I love like Midjourney, which I use for like creating images and things like that. I'm just a massive fan. I know there's lots of controversy around it because people are like, oh well, it's stolen information, da 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 da. But actually, in certain areas, it's not like it is information that's been fed. And my thought process, just before we get into the actual question, is lots of people are saying, oh, well, it's just regurgitating information that is found elsewhere. But actually, that is untrue. It learns the information and then it formulates its own response based on what it learns. Now, my argument would be both in like graphic design, image creation, or writing, is that is exactly what a human brain does. Like you just don't wake up as a baby and know how to write a novel.
Right.
You don't. You write based on your experiences of the world and what you've learned from other people and other situations. Well, that's exactly what AI is doing. So from my mind, if it's like, if there's actual cases where they've literally just stolen things that don't belong to them without permission, like I totally get that that is immoral. But actually, if it's just learning from stuff that's freely available on the internet, all you're doing is cutting down the process, right? From you going and searching the internet and learning and creating something to it going and researching everything that it knows and creating something. So, yeah, so I love it. I think it's a great tool. But what I would say is that you have to have your own understanding, knowledge of whatever it is that you're trying to create for it to be any good, right? If you're a writer, you know what a good piece of writing looks like, especially if you're writing for SEO or an ad. You know what's going to resonate with an audience. So you can use ChatGPT or other kind of AI to quicken up that process in producing the copy. But it's always going to need editing. It's always going to need that human input to get it exactly where it needs to be. And actually, if you aren't good at your job already and you just get ChatGPT to produce something, it's going to produce something that's rubbish, right? And how are you going to know that it's rubbish? Well, you won't, because you're not very good at your job in the first place. So you can there's so many use cases for it, like kind of supporting with some idea creation, like giving you kind of little kind of tidbits on stuff that you can then expand upon. It's really great for kind of tidying up some blog writing, rewriting pieces that you've written to give it a different style or a different tone. I really enjoy it from that perspective. It's really good for creating like meta descriptions and things like that you can tweak. So yeah, I use it regularly, like all the time, but you have to have the knowledge of the service that you're providing to a good level in order for it to be beneficial, I would say. If you don't, then it's still going to be rubbish. So, so yeah, and you can also use it like social media if you wanted to. You can we create quite a lot of stuff through Midjourney to use with our clients. Little kind of funny snippets of wherever it might be. Like we create our own memes using it. We create just various different graphics. We use it to create ideas for graphics that we then build upon and create ourselves. So I mean, there's so many use cases for AI, and I'm massively for it at the moment. And whilst there always still needs to be that human interaction, like you're still going to need people in order to get what you want from it. I read LinkedIn, I can't remember who it was, but someone said everyone that's worried about ChatGPT taking all the writers' jobs. Well, you've had Canva around for literally years now, and there's still crap designers out there using it, right? So it's not going to take away from that human element and that skill and that knowledge that you need in order to use it as a tool. But yeah, loads of use cases for it, and I love it.
Would there be any ethical lines that I'm crossing by kind of investing more into AI while making a big profit from not really investing in the people?
Ooh, I think if you're not investing in the people, then I think that's
A
not
bigger
quite
mistake.
right. Yeah, I would say you still need to invest in your people. Like if you gave AI to somebody that just to create blogs that doesn't really understand how to write, what the objectives are, understands the client, like knows how to write for SEO, knows what good quality writing looks like, it's going to be crap, like you just said, rubbish in, rubbish out. So it's equally important that I think it should be viewed as a tool rather than like just a thing, like an additional person. Yes, a tool rather than a replacement. Exactly that. So you still need to have a really skilled workforce in order to be able to use it and implement it in the right way. So I think people investing in your people, especially as an agency, is like the number one thing that you can do, right? It's the people that make the business at the end of the day, because it's service led. So if they're rubbish, your business is going to be rubbish. So so I'd say definitely that's not something that I would do. I'm sure there's lots of people out there that are just trying to completely use AI to replace all of their staff because of costs and stuff. But I would say that's like a huge mistake. Otherwise, eventually, Oh, gone.
Sorry. And I was going to say the reason why I kind of asked the question is because I feel a lot of people will listen to this podcast and be like, hey, I can just get two tools and pretty
Yeah.
much leave the workout for that itself and not really hire anyone. I
Yeah,
wanted
we've
to
had
make it
this a
clear that
lot.
you need
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Even some of our clients are like, well, I just get AI to write it. It's like, well, go on then, because actually you won't get anywhere near the quality that you get from us, and it won't.
Yeah.
You can get AI to write you a blog piece, but do you know the strategy behind it? Do you know why you're implementing it? Like, do you know if it's going to rank? Like, do you know how many times that keyword needs to be placed in there and where it needs to be placed to get a result? No, you don't. So
Right. And you can ask
yeah,
those questions to ChatGPT and get an answer. But since it's based in 2021, you're
yeah.
probably going to get an outdated answer.
You get an outdated answer, and also it won't be specific to your industry, to your website, to your objectives. Like, yeah, there's quite a lot of it that if you don't, it doesn't understand the little nuances that we would understand, right? And go,
Right.
okay, yeah, on paper that makes sense, but actually in practical senses, that's not going to work for this reason. Like, it's never going to understand those. Well, you never know. Eventually, it might be smart enough to, but right now, it's definitely not smart enough to know that. So it's only ever going to get you part of the way. So yeah, I think if you are seeing AI as a complete replacement for humans, then it's definitely being viewed in the wrong way, right?
What do you think would be some, let's say, evolutions in AI in the coming months? What do you think we could see?
Oh, that's interesting. I In terms of ChatGPT directly, if we're just talking that one, it'd be interesting to see how that works with search. So we've already seen like Google obviously have their own kind of version, and they're looking at doing more kind of search, their search results being more focused on AI. So I think that will become more prevalent. I think people will need to be focused on that as part of their SEO strategy. Although what we've seen to date is that actually everything that we're doing. So if we search using that new piece of technology, actually our own site is still coming up in that top 5 search results for the intent-led search term that we've entered into Google. So
Right.
actually what we're doing to date is working for that type of search already. But I think that will definitely become more prevalent, that actually it will be, a result based on AI, not just on like a list of websites, which will be interesting to see. Um, it would be nice to see something ChatGPT do something with graphics as well. So
Right.
have something that kind of mixes the two together. I think it would be unstoppable if you had something that could actually, like Midjourney. Most of the ones that kind of produce images and stuff don't really do anything with text, right? So when you're kind of producing something, it's literally just an image with no text. So all the text is like looks Russian or something, right? So it would be good to see ChatGPT and Midjourney like have a baby basically and produce something that can not only do really cool graphics and images, but also do kind of have text involved in those images as well. I think it would be totally unstoppable.
Right. Thanks so much for the chat, Jade. It was great.
No problem.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.